Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online build video. Today guys, I bring you guys something a little ahead of schedule, the Battle Priest of Meridia. Now, this build is something that has been requested of me for a while now. A kind of character that can tank and heal and do a bunch of different stuff. Now, I will admit, and I will admit, when I'm really intrigued by something. And I have to say, I have been holding on to this for a while, like almost 2 years, because I created it back in Somerset, and I had it with a different setup then, but it still worked. It just seemed like there was something missing. And since then, you know, we've had more content releases and everything. And finally, I got something in place last year when Murkmire came out. And I was like, man, this thing would be so awesome to release. But at the same time, I was like, yeah, you know, it's just a... So I was like, I held off. And I waited. And I waited. And now with Greymoor around the corner, I figured it was time to release this. Now, this is a really cool build. I have to admit myself. It's a really fun build. But it's got a lot of uniqueness to it. So let's go ahead and jump right in and take a look at the build. So here we are, a Breton Templar, the Battle Priest of Meridia. Now, Breton isn't necessarily the best option. It is one of many options. Argonian's really good, High Elf is really good, Breton is really good, of course, the 3 magic races, but so is Khajiit and Dark Elf. Now, any race can really play this role. It's just those ones are the ones I laid out in that order because of their benefits to being Magicka based. Now, again, any race can play this. So looking at our stats, we have 64 in Magicka. That gives us, with a Breton, 33k, almost 34k max Magicka, 24k, almost 25k max health, 17k max stamina. We do have an 811 mag recovery, 781 health recovery, 557 stam recovery. Now, our spell damage is coming in at 2183 with a 45% spell critical. Weapon damage 1627 with a 29% weapon critical. Now, our spell resistance 21346 and our physical resistance 19283. We are using the Thief Mundus Stone. Because we're a heavy armor build, we need as much critical as we can get, but we also need a good amount of resource return. Using a Resto Staff in heavy armor gives you a massive amount of return, so the Thief Mundus Stone plays really well into it. We also have Major Prophecy for increased spell critical, and then of course we do have Tri-Staff Food. Moving on to our equipment. Now, food and drinks with this, you can use tripods when you're tanking, I guess, or when you're doing whatever you want with it. And then the rest of the time, like when you're playing in a group, or you're doing dungeons, or you're playing in a trial, you can use spell power pots to give you that mag return and that mag recovery and stuff. I'm going to be using these mostly. And then, of course, Tri-Stat Food. So, now that I've done that, let's go ahead and go over the sets, starting with our primary set, which is Julianus. It's a given. The reason why, Battle Priest. 2-piece spell crit, 3-piece max magicka, 4-piece spell crit, and then the 5-piece spell damage. Very powerful set. And it is a crafted set in Orsinium. So if you own the Orsinium DLC, or you pay a subscription, you can craft this set. If you do not, there is another set that you can use, but you have to switch things around a little bit more. So you have to have 2 light pieces on your body, and then the rest heavy, from the next set, which is the Permafrost. Now, Permafrost also drops in Orsinium. It drops in Maelstrom Arena. It is a very powerful set for this build because of how it works. The 2-piece adds health, the 3-piece max magicka, 4-piece mag recovery, and then the 5-piece, while you have a damage shield on you, your health recovery is increased to 885. I switched to this set while testing during Murkmire and found this set to be really good for this particular setup because of how the build plays. And you'll see why in a minute. So very powerful set. Now, I'm going to go over the traits and enchants on the sets, the body, and the jewelry, and then we'll go to the weapons and talk a little bit about them. So, the helm, the belt are light and medium armor, light belt, medium helm. The rest is 5 pieces of heavy armor. And that is going to give you a huge amount of survivability and resistance. Now, the trait or enchants we're using on the gear is we're using 3 tri-stats on the big pieces. The smaller pieces we are using max health. The reason for the max health, we are a combatant. We fight up front. We heal up front. We've got to have survivability, really good survivability. So that's why the high resistance. That's why the higher max health. But we're also a spellcaster. So the premise here is you want to have a good mix. So the tri-stats allow you to have a good mix of stats, and then these ones allow you to have a better health pool. The traits we're using is on the smaller pieces, we're using 4 divines. On the bigger pieces, the helm and the legs, we're using invigorating, and this is for increased health, magic, stam recovery. And it's mostly for the mag and health recovery that we're using this. And then on the heavy chest, we are using reinforced. That is going to give us the highest amount of resistance out of all our pieces. So it's going to give us that higher amount of resistance value. Now, moving on to the jewelry, we have 2 rings of permafrost, both trirune. Now, trirune, you do have to change to this. If you don't have trirune, this is a little secret I'm going to teach you guys now. If you don't have access to trirune in Clockwork City, what you do is you leave all 3 of these magicka, and you put a health, or a magicka, health, and stamina here. Your stats will be lower, but only by a marginal amount, usually around 500 to 600. And that is fine. You still can get by with the loss of that little bit. The thing is that with trirune, you really get to maximize all 3 attributes. So you get to, increase that stamina, health, and magicka. But we are using 2 spell damage here. This is going to maximize your spell damage. And then on the last piece, the necklace, we are using an infused permafrost necklace with health recovery. Now, the reason for the health recovery and not mag recovery is we are a Breton, we are a Templar, we have tools that give us a lot of magicka already. We don't need extra magic recovery. We want that extra health recovery because of the way permafrost works. Whenever you have a damage shield on you, you get 885 health recovery. So, it doesn't matter the damage shields you cast, you're going to get that recovery. So it's good to have this, and I'll explain why when we get to the next tool, which is our first staff. Now, the first staff we're using is a Black Rose Prison Restoration Staff. Now, the Black Rose Prison Restoration Staff, the 2-piece bonus is Steadfast Ward applies major vitality to your target for 2 seconds, increasing their healing taken on the target by 30%. That's 30% more health recovery as well, because your health recovery doesn't get boosted. When your health comes in from health recovery, it gets boosted. So as soon as you apply this, boom, you're getting that extra 30% health healing. You'll have heals going off around you, but you're also going to have your health recovery coming in because you're applying that shield, and it's giving you that permafrost benefit. So it's a great combination in survivability. The next one is the Master's Restoration Staff. Now, you guys are probably wondering why 2 Master Restoration Staffs and why not a Lightning Staff and a Resto Staff. You can do either, your choice. I just like this combination because of how it works. It gives you a really good, powerful setup. So this one we have infused with weapon spell damage. Now, you're going to be mostly heavy attacking when you're on the back bar, or even light attacking. So you can get resources to return, and you're going to be light attacking because most of the abilities on your back bar are heals. So the 2-piece from this, the initial heal from Grand Healing, invigorates you and your allies for 4 seconds, restoring 117 magicka and stamina every second. So for the first 4 seconds of Grand Healing, you're getting this extra magicka and stamina, which plays really well into the build, again, because it's another way for you to get magicka and your allies to get magicka and stamina. So overall, really good for that. Now, we're going to move on to skills. And as always, I'm going to go over the skills I have on my bar, and then I'm going to go over the skills I have unlocked. Now, I want to be clear on something here. When I show you what I have on my bar, it's not set in stone. That is the reason why I show you all the skills I have unlocked. And so this way you can choose which skills you want to put there for your own play habits or your own play style. And you also don't have to use the same morphs I use. You can change the morphs around. You can change the skills to your preference. The same thing goes for the gear sets, the traits, the Mundastones, all that stuff. This is just a template. It's a guide to show you how I would choose to play a Battle Priest. It's really up to the player to decide how they want to play it. Alright, so moving on now to the skills. So the first skill we have is Puncturing Sweeps. Now this does magic damage up front, a nice chunk, magic damage with every successful hit afterwards, and then you heal for 44% of the damage done. Anyone hit by this, though, does get their movement speed reduced. The next ability we have is Ritual Retribution. This is a given, okay? I'm going to have this here. One, it does a heal, an AoE heal, and it does AoE damage. Now, the nice thing is it's also a synergy. But it also, every time you activate it, you remove 2 harmful effects from yourself. So it works really well for somebody tanking, or playing a healer, or doing whatever. Then, of course, our next one is Ward Ally. This is here for the purpose of the rest of staff. Call on your staff's strength to protect you and the lowest health ally around you with a damage shield that absorbs 7,038 damage. This shield strength is increased by up to 100% depending on the severity of the target's wounds. The more damage you have, the stronger it gets. That's 14k you can get in shields. That's powerful. Now the next ability we have is Blazing Spear. You can use Luminous Shards, either one. They both do relatively similar DPS, except one does do more damage, and that's Blazing Spear. And Luminous Shards will give both resources back. This just gives a singular resource back, but it's still a very powerful ability. Then, of course, we do have Inner Light for the Major Prophecy and the increased max magicka, and even without it, you only lose about 1,000 magicka. Moving on now to the next, our ultimate, which is Crescent Sweep. Now, this one does magic damage, so you swing, as it says in Aedric Spear, around with Holy Vengeance, dealing X amount of magic damage to all enemies, and an additional magic every 2 seconds for 6 seconds. Enemies in your path will be hit for 60% more damage. So this is actually a really good damage ability, and it's super cheap in Ultimate. It's 71. Moving on to the back bar, our first ability we have is Breath of Life. Now this is a high burst heal, oh crap skill. You're going to be using this in that moment. The next ability we have, of course, is Healing Springs. Again, a very powerful heal, because it heals for 4 seconds and gives resources to you and your allies. But then when you heal the rest of it, you restore 30 magicka every time you or an ally is healed. So you actually get magicka back whenever you use Healing Springs. The next ability we have, of course, is Combat Prayer. This is another pretty much given for a lot of people. This one does the Minor Berserk, Minor Resolve, and so it increases both your physical resistance and your spell resistance, and it gives you increased damage, which is great. And then, of course, our next ability is Channeled Focus. This gives Major Resolve and Major Ward, increasing, or Major Resolve, sorry, just physical and spell resist by 5,280, and it also returns 240 magicka every second. Standing in the circle, of course, increases your resistance by 50% more. It also gives you minor mending while it's active. So does the Ritual of Retribution. And then, of course, we have Inner Light here again to give us that major prophecy, and the 5% at max magicka, 7% when you have the passives in the guild unlocked. And then, of course, our last ability, and this is a floater, but I do like using Light's Champion. It's a really good heal. It's really cheap. It's 118 ultimate, and it heals for X amount of health every second for 5 seconds, and a friendly target you heal gains major force for 8 seconds, increasing their critical damage by 15%. This also applies to you. So that's the skills I would suggest using, okay, for myself. You can use what you want again. So I'm going to show you what I have unlocked, and then we can go from there. So we have Crescent Sweeps, really good ability. I already showed you that. We have Puncturing Strikes. We also have Aurora Javelin, which is a nice kind of CC damage ability that you have, and it also can deal more damage the further you are away from your enemy. It's really a good one. You have Explosive Charge, which is a great rush into the battle to attack. It explodes, dealing damage to enemies in a 6-meter radius, and it can if they're casting, it'll interrupt them, set them off balance, and stun them for 3 seconds. Really good for PvP, but also really good in PvE. Blazing Spear again does damage. You guys know the routine. And then we have Radiant Ward. Now this deals damage when you activate it in a 5-meter radius around you. It deals magic damage, but then on top of that, it also increases in strength by 9%. It's a very powerful damage shield. If you are going to tank, I would say to use the Ward Ally and this both on your front bar, so you have these two really powerful damage shields you can use to absorb damage. And then, of course, moving on to Dawn's Wraith, we have Solar Disturbance, great damage ability, great group protection ability, because it does give major maim to the enemies for the duration of 10 seconds, or 6 seconds, sorry, and or 10 seconds, and if they leave the circle, they still retain the major maim for 6 seconds. On top of that, it also has a synergy, really powerful. And then we have Reflecting Light. This shoots out 2 balls of flame at your enemies. It deals damage up front and then damage over 12 seconds. It also reduces their movement speed, and it gives you Major Prophecy when you cast it for the duration. Then you get Solar Barrage, really powerful AoE damage ability. Then we have Purifying Light, a really good support skill. It does do magic damage up front. It stacks magic damage for the duration of 6 seconds, and then it basically explodes upon the enemy, and then afterwards it leaves a sunlight pool behind that heals allies every 2 seconds for 6 seconds. It's another great support skill. We also have Unstable Core, really good in both PvP and PvE when you know how to use it, and then also Radiant Glory, great ranged beam attack. Restoring Light, we have Remembrance, and a great group heal and AoE heal, and it's super cheap as well, 118 ultimate. We also have Breath of Life. We have Ritual Retribution, great AoE heal, 10-meter radius around you, and it will heal somebody outside the ability for even more. Then you have Radiant Aura, which gives you all 3 minor recoveries, Minor Fortitude, Minor Endurance, and Minor Intellect, increasing health, stamina, magic recovery by 10% while slotted. And then on top of that, anytime you activate it, it applies Minor Magicka Steel to all enemies in a 28-meter radius. It is a very powerful way of giving Magicka Steel to your allies. We also have Ritual of Retribution. Great damage ability, great heal, great synergy. And then, of course, we have Channeled Focus. Now, moving on to our weapon skills, we are primarily using Restoration Staff. Now, you can also unlock the Destruction Staff if you want to, and you can unlock all the skills and passives and take advantage of the Destruction Staff when you're not in a group, or you're just wanting to play in the Overland, you're wanting to clear some content a little bit faster. Using this build, you don't do a lot of damage really fast, so it can be really difficult for some people at how long it takes to clear some encounters. But Restoration Staff, we do have Light's Champion, we do have Healing Springs, we do have Rapid Regeneration, or Radiating Regeneration. We also have Combat Prayer, Ward Ally, and Siphon Spirit. Siphon Spirit's actually a really good ability. It puts minor lifesteal and minor Magicka Steal on a single target. So it's a great way to kind of like just toss it out, leave it, and let it do its thing. So armor, we are a heavy armor build, so we do have an Unstoppable Brute. This is primarily for like if you want a stamina morph or a stamina version of your major resolve, which increases physical and spell resist. But with each piece of heavy armor equipped, the cost to break free is reduced, and you also get immunity to knockback disabling effects by 6 seconds, but it reduces your movement speed by 65 for the duration. So it does give you this really bad hindrance, but if you're playing PvP and using this, you can use this and some of your shields to help you mitigate while you get that benefit. World skills. Soul Magic, we do have Soul Assault and Consuming Trap unlocked, and then moving on to guilds. A lot of people are going to question why Fighters Guild stuff, but you have to understand the way Fighters Guild works. So Fighters Guild Ultimate, Dawnbreaker, is based off your max stats. So we have this unlocked because it's based off our max Magicka. We can actually use this if we want something that's a good AoE damage with damage over time more than the sweeping thing, and it does a lot of damage. Then of course we have Silver Leash. This does a little bit of damage, but it's more of a pull to get your enemies to you so you can kill them faster or help with your group. We have Ring of Preservation, which is a great way of giving your group minor protection, which reduces their damage taken by 8%, and it gives minor endurance, increasing stam recovery by 10%, and it heals them every second for 360, or every 0.5 seconds for 360. So you get basically 700 and something health every second, and that can also crit heal. So that's really good. Then we have Evil Hunter if you want to have a little bit higher weapon critical, like if you're using this skill and you want to make this skill do a little bit more for healing, you can. And then of course we do have Barbed Trap. Now Barbed Trap is a really good skill for minor force for you. This will increase your critical damage by 10%, and it's a nice way to like I said, just give you that minor force. Mage's Guild, we have Ice Comet. Great CC, great damage over time. We have Inner Light, of course we know what that does. We have Degeneration if you want to get major sorcery without using a potion. You can do that, and it also deals 13,000 damage over 12 seconds. We also have Scalding Ruin, which is a great kind of little AoE trap kind of thing that you can throw out. It does decent amount of flame damage, and it does flame damage over 14 seconds. You have Balance, which is a great way of getting your major resolve, increasing both spell and physical resistance, but it does cost you health, and it gives you Magicka back. So this is another great tool when tanking. The Exchange also reduces your healing done and damage shield strength by 50%, so you have to be careful when using this. Psijic Order. Temporal Guard, really good displacement ability to use in PvP or even in PvE if you want to do that, and it gives you minor protection. Now, being a Templar, using the Biting Jabs or Puncturing Sweeps, you're already going to get minor protection during the duration of that, but this gives you minor protection outside of that. Time Freeze, another great ability for crowd control and stuff like that. You can use it in PvP or PvE. Elemental Weapon, great source of damage, especially the fact that you're using a Resto Staff. You can actually put this in place of Puncturing Sweeps, so you can get that extra fire. You get all those different additional magic things applied. You can do Burning, Chilled, and Concussed with a Resto Staff, and it is very powerful. It's pretty nice. You also, if the power is not consumed by the time you use it, you get Magicka back. So you also have Race Against Time, another great way of getting major force. It also increases your movement speed and your critical damage, so that's kind of the nice trade-off. And activating this ability also removes snares and immobilizations and grants you immunity to them for 2 seconds. It does give you that minor force for 12 seconds, which is also nice. We have Men's Spirit. This is a great heal. A lot of people don't use it, but it is a really great heal. Your light attacks heal for so much, your heavy attacks heal every second for the duration, and then on top of that, when you heal an ally, you also give them major ward or major resolve, increasing physical spell resist by 5,280 for 5 seconds, and that's with light or heavy attacks. Now, the nice thing with this and the Resto Staff is when you do a heavy attack with the Resto Staff, you still proc your perks of the Resto Staff passives, which is the Restoration Expert. Increases healing, or not Restoration Expert, Essence Drain. You gain major mending for 3 seconds after a fully charged heavy attack, increasing healing done by 25%. And you also heal an ally, or yourself or an ally target, but for 34% of the damage done. So you get this really powerful heal because of it. So it plays off really well with that Psijic skill. And then, of course, Introspection. Why this happens every time? Because this is the only skill line you have to unlock. And I keep forgetting to do that. Because when you see it, when you're unlocking the skills, you see that this is already unlocked. You don't see the rest of them, so it's my bad. But Introspection is a great way to get resources back. You do go into like a meditative state, and you start floating, and you get health, magic, and stamina, but you get more health back. So this really plays well. If you pop your ward ally, and then you throw this out, you can get that recovery going on, and you get that healing going on, and all that other stuff, and it allows you to just kind of like boost your resource return for a little bit. Alright, Undaunted. Sanguine Altar, great heal, or great way to get the minor lifesteal on enemies. Anyone in that range of the altar will get minor lifesteal put upon them. And then also it is a great synergy. Then we have Tangling Webs. This is a great CC kind of ability. It controls movement speed. It does damage up front and damage over time. Just really good, and it's a synergy. Then we have Inner Rage, another great ability for you to use when you're tanking. It does magic damage up front, and it has a synergy that can activate on it when you taunt an enemy. So it's a really good ability. We also have Spike Bone Shield. Great ability for you to use because it gives you a massive shield, but it also deals damage back to the enemies. And then, of course, on top of that, it scales with your max health, and then it's a synergy as well. Then we have Energy Orb, which is a heal when you throw it out. It's an orb that floats across the screen and heals people, but it also is synergy. So you have like a lot of synergies here that you can actually use. And then, of course, the Undaunted Command, Undaunted Metal. Alliance War. Assault skills, Aggressive Horn, Echoing Vigor, and Razor Caltrops. Now, I'm not going to go over all these, but Razor Caltrops, if you want to apply Major Fracture, it's a great way to do that. Echoing Vigor is another great AoE heal. And then, of course, Aggressive Horn is a great thing for getting Minor Force or Major Force to your allies, and also boosting their max magic and stamina for 30 seconds. Support side, Reviving Barrier, great way to keep your group alive, ward them off from damage. It's a huge damage shield, and it gives a lot of health over 15 seconds. We also have Efficient Purge, great way to cleanse 3 negative effects from your group. And then we have Mystic Guard, which is a great way to apply the 30% healing received to an ally. So you can put this to yourself and a tank, and you both gain minor vitality, increasing your healing received by 8%. And then anytime you use Ward Ally, you're also getting that 30%. So it's a really good way to help your tank stay alive, or to even for you to help somebody else in your group stay alive with that minor vitality. And then, of course, Magicka Aid is a great passive. Breton, of course, we get the Gift of Magus, increases Mac Magicka by 20% or 2,000. We get Spell Attunement, which gives us increased spell resistance, and if we are affected with shield, burning, or concussed, we also get an increased resistances, then spell resist. And of course, we increase our magic recovery by 100. And then we have Magicka Mastery. It reduces the cost of your magic abilities by 7%. Now, the nice thing is, being a Breton, or not Breton, no, Templar, you have the Dawn's Wraith passive, Restoring Spirit, which also reduces the health, magicka, stamina, and ultimate cost of your abilities by 5%. So any ability you're using as a Breton, you're actually getting higher reduced cost. You're getting a 12% reduced cost in abilities in heavy armor. So you actually save resources as the equivalent of what you would in light armor, and a little bit more. but not quite as much if you're a Breton, of course, but still really good. And then, of course, crafting, we have alchemy, medicinal use, and then provisioning, gourmand, and connoisseur. Now, I know I took a little bit longer to explain the skills I had unlocked, but I did it on purpose. I wanted you guys to see all the different skill choices you have available and why you have them. All right, so now, moving on to our champion points. Starting with the red tree, we have 56 in the ironclad. This reduces our damage taken from direct damage attacks by 20%. Moving on to the next one, we have 31 in the thick skin. This reduces damage taken from damage over time effects by 13%. 43 in the hardy, reducing damage taken from physical, poison, disease damage by 10%. 43 in elemental defender, reducing flame, frost, shock, and magic damage by 10%. And then moving on over here, we have 40 in the bastion. This increases the effectiveness of your damage shields by 16%. 19 into quick recovery, increasing your healing received by 5%. And then 38 in the heavy armor focus, increasing your physical resistance by 3250 while wearing 5 or more pieces of heavy armor. Moving on to the final green, or to the next tree, the green tree, we have 40 in a warlord, reducing your break free cost by 16%. We have 16 in a sprinter, reducing your sprint cost by 10%. 16 in a bashing focus, reducing your bash cost by 10%. And then moving on over here, 75 in the tenacity. This increases your mag and the stamina return of your fully charged heavy attacks by 14%. And then we have 43 in the healthy. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about this real quick so you guys can see. Wearing heavy armor gives you a passive that anytime you deal a heavy attack, you restore magic and stamina at 25% more. Also, when using a restoration staff, you get a passive called Circle of Life. Your fully charged heavy attacks restore 30% more magicka. So when you use a restoration staff in heavy armor, you restore a base of 30. Another 25% for the heavy armor. So that right there is a 55%. Then you add another 30% on top of that. That now 85%. Now add 14%. That is 94% of your resources back when you heavy attack. And it's not like you get this massive chunk, but you do get a much larger chunk than you normally would. And it works out really well with that in your CP. Then we have 43 in a health recovery. This just gives you a 10% increase health recovery, and it really plays into the idea that you're wearing heavy armor, you're playing off of that health recovery from that set anytime you use a shield, so it works out really well. Moving on over here, we have 40 in the tumbling. This reduces your cost to break free, or dodge roll, sorry, by 16%, and Shadow Ward 40, reducing your block cost by 16%. Moving on to the final tree, the blue tree, we have 43 in the Bless. This increases healing done by 10%. We have 56 in the Elfborn, increasing critical damage and critical healing with magic abilities by 20%, and 56 in the Elemental Expert, increasing Flame, Frost, Shock, and magic damage by 12%. Moving on again, we have 35 in the Staff Expert. This increases the light and heavy attacks of your Destruction, Restoration, and Overload if you're a Sorcerer by 20%. We're primarily using it for the Resto Staff. Then, of course, we have 40 in the Master at Arms, increasing your damage done with direct damage attacks by 16%. Moving on to the final tree, we have 40 in the Thaumaturge. Now, this is really good because this increases your damage done by 16%. It also unlocks Perfect Strike, which increases your weapon critical by 9%. Now, this is important because if you wanted to use some of your stamina heals, you can actually do that and get your critical rating up higher so you can have a more effective way of doing that. And it goes up to about 38%, I think it is. So that is the skills, the build itself in general. We're going to go ahead and take this into the dungeon now and see how it works. Now, please remember, this build is not necessarily just a tank, a healer, a damage healer. It's whatever you really want it to be, and it can do a lot of stuff. And I will be releasing a video later today explaining a little bit more about that, so you guys can see for yourself what I mean about how this build works, so you guys can see for yourself. I thought I was actually going to have taken a lot more damage by now. Now, if you guys are wondering why I'm using combat prayer and stuff right away, it's so I can build my DPS with my character up, and I try to keep it up for a while. So, and I keep hitting the wrong skill because I'm used to having this the biting one on my second bar and not on my first bar. So, oh god. Need to get some resources back. Alright, so there we go. Now, of course, we're going to go in and face the boss, and this is where things are going to get a little tricky. It's going to get a little bit more, like, I have to do more stuff. You guys know the routine here. Now, you can see I'm going to stand here on purpose and just pop my shield, and that's all I needed to do. I didn't have to do a lot of healing because I have such a high recovery when I do pop my shield, which I'll show you guys as well after we get done with this. So, now, if you notice how I do that with the attack, I do the piercing jabs, and then I go into a heavy attack, and that's basically just to get my resources back right away, so I don't have to use up a bunch later. Now, I am going to just go ahead and let him kill me, because I could play this through the whole fight. I have done that with this build, and it's actually quite powerful. So, now that I've shown you guys the build and everything, I do want to mention a few things, and I was talking about this with the buffs. So when I use the Ward Ally, my recovery rate jumps to 1932. Now I'm getting 1,932 health every second until that goes away. So when I have my Ward Ally up, I use it as a means to get health back. But that works with any shield I use. I get that recovery boost. And so I can do this, and if you watch, when I cast Ward Ally, you'll see that thing that pops up for a quick second on there. That thing that pops up is the buff showing up. And then I get it for that duration. So it lasts that whole time, but it's just showing me the activation. Now if I go to my other skill in the Restoring Light, or Aedric Spear, the Radiant Dawn, and I put Radiant Dawn right here, for example, you don't see that symbol show up, but I do get the health recovery. So I'm still getting the health recovery for the duration and such. So I can actually do this, let it run its course, and then once that comes off, automatically go right into that. And I get this for that duration, the full duration of the shield, and then a little bit more. So it's a really nice skill and set combination for this build, because it does give you that flexibility. Now, as I said, everything about my builds is flexible. They are not, you are not restricted in how you play it. You get to decide on what you want to do. And I do have a video coming out later today explaining more of the reasons behind this. It is called the ESO character build guide, but it's not a build guide video like any I've done in the past. It's more of a thing that explains how I do it and why I do it, so you guys get a greater understanding of why I've been more in focus with releasing just builds and not saying it's a healer or it's a tank or it's a damage dealer, because, well, you'll have to see the video. But that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you guys liked it. I do love this build, and I want to say thank you to a few people real quick. So Vinosi gave me this idea a long time ago. He really wanted to have a healer tank type character. He did all kinds of stuff to try and create one, and then there was other people too as well that I played with at the time that were really big into the idea, and I was really trying to create that then, and then as time progressed I've created other ideas. And I've just basically had this one sitting on the back burner until Murkmire came out. Once Murkmire came out, I saw that staff, I said, wow, this would really work. I wanted to release it then, but at the same time I knew that there was a lot of things, a lot of controversy, a lot of things going on within the meta that would have really just set some people off. So I just held back until now. Like, Greymoor is the perfect time for this, because of what's going on in Greymoor. We're fighting vampires, we're fighting the undead, we're fighting the supernatural, and it just seems like the right time. So I hope you guys, again, like the build. If you do, you guys know what's coming next. Go ahead and hit that like button. If you guys want to see more videos by me, you can subscribe. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day, and this guy might see you in game. Bye.